All right, today was a pretty much a choppy range day is what we ended up getting throughout the day. Today's actually put in the lowest volume of the year. We closed just under 46 mil, which is about 61% of the 30-day average, which is around 75 mil. Apple actually was pretty low too. It only had about 55 mil, which its average is 73 mil per day. So a very, very low volume day, which I do have a couple theories about why. So a couple things to note from today, just looking at the daily chart on SPY here. You can see we finally broke this black dotted line here. So this is 7-day long, what I call extreme bull momentum support. So we can go ahead and finally get rid of that line. And you can see we finally broke down through that. This 414.5 level, that was pretty strong resistance. We hit through once and hit 415. I think we rejected a total of about 3 different times today there. But we put in a nice double top right here, so this will be something interesting to watch. And we also put in this doji. It is technically a dragonfly doji, which usually is seen as a continuation doji, but with a double top, it shows more indecision than it does for me continuation. But if you look at the last 2 days here, these were both gravestone dojis, which should consider or lead to a sell-off, but that did not happen either. So I put this red line yesterday on the chart. I talked about it. It was a perspective line, and we actually perfectly rejected it. So this will be an interesting line. My theory with that line, if you go back to this June, was that yesterday was our June 2nd peak, and that we would have 2 days inside before we finally put our 3rd day in and then break down. So this would be today, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, drop. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. This also led up to CPI, so I will talk about some CPI here later on, but going back to this here. Important levels to watch for me tomorrow. Resistance definitely is this 414.5. If the bears can defend this, I think we're putting in the consolidation / top right now, and we're going to look to drop back down here towards this 390 level. We still have these gaps back down here. We have this 378.57 gap, and we do still have this tiny gap down here at 369.38 too. It's only about $1, so that one might get left, but this one right here, I would be shocked to see not filled. Overall, that 414.5, it lands up perfectly with that red solid line that I had projected in there too. If we do reject there, or we just open red and kind of just see a red trend day, I'm going to be looking at, we got 411.9, that 412 level has been pretty key, 410.3, and then finally, if we do it, the key support that to really, really watch, if we break down a decent amount tomorrow, will be 408.8. This one right here would break the actual bull run that goes back to July 14th. So breaking this level, especially going into a weekend and the week before CPI, would be a very, very bearish sign to me. That would also put us back just, but the 8 EMA is probably going to come about right here. So that would be a pretty big bullish or bearish sign. However, if the bulls can come back into full strength tomorrow, then we're going to be looking to break this 414.5, and then we're going to come here, which is this 417.5 level. I've talked about this level a lot. This is where the daily 200 EMA is. This is a very, very important level. Pretty much we are stuck between the 100 EMA right here at 407.5, and then we're stuck at the 200 EMA at 417.5. So until one of these breaks, and when I say break, I don't want just a wick over it. I want an actual candle closed above it. We're kind of just stuck in in just consolidation. We do have these other rising wedges that I put in there yesterday that I'm still watching. I don't suspect us to have that kind of a green day, but if we do, and we really just come out and bulls just take off like they have kind of these days here with some extreme bull momentum going into the weekend, we'll be looking at 420. And then finally, this level right here, 424.6. This is big time resistance right here, because not only is it the actual bull channel resistance, but we also have the rising wedge resistance too. So I would be shocked to see us tomorrow break through anything above 420.6. But my most likely case is we are going to continue to reject this 414.5, and we're going to start testing supports tomorrow, and we're finally going to hopefully close below August 3rd's candle, trying to close somewhere underneath 410.3 would be the ideal bearish close tomorrow. There is a pretty good chance, though, that we could test this 200 EMA. Watching how that interacts there, if it's a hard rejection, to me that's a sign that the bulls are pretty much exhausted at this point, and we're going to see the sell-off next week. If they don't even try to test it, then and we just keep this here and put a nice triple top in, or just the double top and then continuation downside, I feel pretty comfortable with this being the top for now, the temporary top, I would say. So let's switch over to the weekly on SPY. I talked about it, that 414.5 level right here. It's also very important because at 415 we have the weekly resistance level. So this pinkish red channel right here that we pretty much traded in before we dropped down and then we recovered back into. As you can see here, we had 1, 2, 3 big rejections on the weekly there before we finally broke down. So really it was 2 rejections and then we just dumped, which interestingly enough, that is the week of CPI also that we did that and dumped. Let me check my dates on that. I might be wrong on that. Hold on. Yeah, so that is the week of CPI. So we had 2 rejections, and then CPI came in, and we dumped hard on that week of CPI. So I'm kind of looking for a similar setup here. We're kind of are putting a doji candle in here on this weekly. If we see a little bit more retracement, it'll definitely be a doji. So I'm going to be watching this level very, very closely tomorrow. We rejected, I mean, a very, very aggressive rejection off it twice this morning, and then even power hour, we hard rejected that 414. So I have a feeling this is the max that we're going to see tomorrow. Support for tomorrow, if we do really break down, is 400 on the weekly, but I don't suspect that. We'll be looking to test that support next week, though. Flipped over to futures to see if we see anything else over there. This is the new daily candle that's open now. Kind of a similar picture. We have this almost double top here, but we do have more of a gravestone doji here than we do on the SPY daily, which is more indicative of the top being put in. The one thing to note here is we did not break the extreme bull channel support on the futures. We only did that on the SPY. So my guess is we would see this break tomorrow, though. I'm kind of putting in or looking at a similarity here for June 27th and wondering if we're going to put in something similar. We had kind of a much bigger run up here. Obviously, that was a 3% day. This one was only about 1.5%, but there's a good chance we could see a pretty big drop tomorrow, almost all the way back down to support would be for 4,100 basically. This channel support right here, or sorry, the rising wedge support for the extreme momentum is 41.43 though. So that's a key level to watch overnight and tomorrow. Kind of the same thing on the weekly here. This 41.64 level is basically the key that we need to watch. If we see that level break, then we might finally start taking up in here, but I'm looking at the same thing right here. I think we're going to put in pretty much this doji candle right here, and then we're going to see it drop down next week. So that's pretty much it for SPY right now. I'm going to touch on Apple, and then I'm going to come back to that CPI. So Apple, pretty much after a pretty impressive day yesterday, just absolutely did nothing today, just pretty much barely moved. It only had a $2.76 range when I think it moved, what, $6 yesterday or something. Same thing here. We have a double top at 166, but we also have that doji, which is important. We are still in this rising wedge of this black dotted here. It's a pretty extreme rising wedge. They have not broke their extreme bull channels or bull support like we did on SPY. I think SPY is predicting what's going to happen on futures and Apple though today, Friday. I kind of have these arrows here. It says we are here, so I'm looking at this top right here, and then we put in a doji with a double top, and then we see 2 days of sell-off. It's pretty much what I'm looking for to happen, and we're going to back test this support right here. So I'm going to be looking for a drop down somewhere around here tomorrow, probably around 163, and then come Monday, I think we're going to test the actual bull support down by 159.9 is what I'm watching for Apple. The weekly, there really isn't a whole lot going on here. You can see we haven't quite hit the resistance line, which is at 167.5, which I don't really suspect we will tomorrow. We might come pretty close to it if we have a really bullish day. Support is super low, 156. It would have to be a pretty impressive red day to touch that tomorrow. So we're pretty much just going to finish somewhere inside where we are here. I don't really have any key levels I'm watching on Apple. Apple's weekly really doesn't give a big picture like the SPY and futures and stuff does. So I'm pretty much watching the big channel and then the current channel we're on. So we're going to switch back over and do a little bit of talk about CPI now. So on here, I have pretty much all the CPIs highlighted. So this is Friday before July CPI. As you can see, we pretty much had a nice sell-off. And before I get to this, I just posted on Reddit a nice CPI breakdown. It goes into much more detail than I will be able to on here because it has all like the actual numbers you can see and whatnot. But I'll give a pretty brief overlook on here of what I'm seeing and why I'm going to do what I'm going to do and how I'm going to trade it and stuff. So overall, the trend has been pretty much for the last, we'll go all the way back to April, that the Friday or Monday, so pretty much 2 days before CPI, that we see a pretty large sell-off. So April's wasn't as bad. We only saw a -2.7 day and then a -1.71 day, so not too crazy. But you see here we have CPI on, looks like the CPI was on a Tuesday. So we had Tuesday and then Monday, Friday. So 2 days before pretty much starts the sell-off. And then, so we have May CPI, same thing. This is the CPI day, and we have 1 day before. That one was an inside day. 2 days before was super red, -3.2%. So we're looking at that one. And then June, which was the big cliff diver, which is what I'm kind of thinking we're going to be looking at here. You have CPI right here in the middle. You have 1 day before, -2.38 day. 1 day before that, -1%. So I'm watching for that. Same thing July here. We got July CPI right here. 2 days before, 1, 2, big dump. Now, the interesting thing about the last CPI was that Friday, it wasn't really a big dump. It was a red day, but that definitely put the top in. But if you kind of look at the trend here, it almost looks like that's right where we're at. We have this doji, green day that rejects at a level, green day that rejects at a level, and then it's followed up immediately with a doji double top. Doji double top. So there's a chance, I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a chance that we do gap down tomorrow in morning and just start drilling, but I'll have to kind of see what happens to open. We haven't had a true red morning in quite a long time, so I'm not really suspecting one, but I do think we're going to start the sell-off tomorrow. And then you kind of see where I'm projecting us to be. August 10th, which is right here on the projection line, is CPI. Depending on what happens, we're going to start seeing a sell-off about right here is where I'm looking for. 405 at the absolute minimum would be barely a sell-off. Extreme sell-off, I'm looking at 390s. Just looking at my document real quick here. Overall CPI, they are predicting or forecasting a consensus of 8.9%, which would be saying that inflation did peak. However, the actual TE forecast is 9.1, which is what the previous CPI was. I do expect that the CPI is going to be higher than 9.1 personally. Just looking at food especially, gas has come down, but I don't think it's coming down enough to really make it worthwhile. So I'm just going to read off this document because a couple interesting trends. 5 of the last 7 CPI days, we have closed below our opening price, regardless if we open red or green. So basically, even if we open plus 1%, because CPI was great, almost every time but 2 of those, we have still dropped intraday. On average, we have dropped almost a whole percent. On the 2 days that we did close higher, which one of those was that July one, where we even opened super red but pushed pretty green, the average is about an 8% or 0.8% rise. On average of the last 7 CPIs for the whole year, the 2 days before is averaging a 0.35% drop, which 0.35% isn't a whole lot. However, if you look at the last 4 CPIs, so taking April, May, June, and July, we're actually averaging over the 2 days a negative 2.61% drop, which is a pretty big drop. So the way I'm going to play CPI is we're going to save some BP tomorrow. Basically what I'm going to go for is, depending on what happens, I'm looking for, like I said, this rejection right here. I'm end of day going to open some puts with on SPY with a Wednesday expiration. I'll just do them at the money. I'll open them as soon as market closes pretty much. And I'm going to let those ride. The goal is going to be obviously that Monday opens pretty bloody. Let's take a look here. The last 4 CPIs, the 2 days before it's about average that whether the 2 days before is the worst or the 1 day before is the worst drop. But averaging that 2.5% drop, I'm planning on holding regardless. So my goal is going to be, if Monday comes in super red, like a negative 2%, negative 3% type of day, I'll close and end the day. I'll take my profits and I'll be happy. If we don't get the big drop on Monday, I'll let them ride till Tuesday. If Tuesday is super bloody, definitely closing them, especially if I'm in profits. If it's not in profits by then, and we just happen to run really crazy, then I'm just going to have to let them ride to expiration and hope that we get that big drop. I don't plan on averaging them down or anything like that. It's just going to be the play. The other way I'm playing CPI, which this will go more in depth in the document, it'll be make a lot more sense under the should we swing overnight puts section of the document. Just give this a read, but the brief overview of it is that it's pretty much a bet to play puts overnight. Of the 2 days that we did open green, even if you had bought puts the night before, and you were wrong because it opened green obviously, so you're wrong, on January you could have sold for a 29% profit at open. In April, you would have opened and you could have immediately sold for, sorry, I'm looking at my numbers here, for break even. So even if you were wrong in January and April, you still could have sold for profit. Now, of course, we got to look and see when we were right, how good it could be for us. Also in May, because May opened, it did open red, but it opened at like 0.02%, so it really wasn't a whole big deal. You would have opened up at a nice 0.5% profit. However, had you held that all day long, you would end up at 83% profit. So just quickly, in June, had you held overnight at the money puts, you would have opened at 160% profit. And in July, you would have opened at 101% profit. So to me, the risk to the reward is definitely there to play puts overnight. So this is Tuesday into Wednesday night. At the money, opened when market closes, and just let them ride and see what happens. Anybody that plays anything like this should be obviously a small position. This isn't going to be like a full port or anything like that. Lotto size, so quarter to half your normal position. Nothing that's going to hurt you if you're wrong. But that's how I plan to play it. I'll have a weekly analysis up tomorrow. It'll definitely be a little bit longer. I'll go more in depth about some levels I'm looking at and things like that. Thanks for tuning into this video. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and follow to support the page. I provided the Discord link here. You can either type that into your browser or I will provide the link in the comments. The Discord, if you're interested, we do live call-outs. I do commentary all throughout the day. I also do, for the paid members, a updated pre-market that includes support and resistance levels. Throughout the day, I'm also updating with ranges, trends, things like that. I'm on a couple different platforms if you want to follow. I'm on YouTube now, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. My name on Reddit is Daddy Dersh. Thanks again.